your work can feel much smoother.
Great. So it looks like I'm going fantastic. Let me just set this up. So welcome everyone. This is, well, normally I would weekly stream live on a Wednesday, but today I'm going on for a Thursday because it's the Easter holidays, school holidays, so my work pattern's been a little bit different. And I really wanted to do a follow-up live YouTube about the Hydra guitar, because as a lot of you know, last week after I put that video up, and thank you for those of you who were there, Steve Vai left a comment on the video, which was brilliant. And in that comment, he revealed loads of information that we were speculating on during our live video. So I wanted to feed that back to everyone. I know the title of this video implies that he spoke to me direct. Well, he sent me a message, and you'll see in the message he was very complimentary about what we're doing here in our chats. And it's just so great to have someone like him interacting with everyone. So I'll just wait a moment, hopefully some more people join in the live chat. Now, I've noticed with my live streaming, my live chat replay doesn't appear in the video. So if you're watching this later, I've got something for you, which is I'm going to put the live chat actually onto the video so we can see it as it happens. Let's just check it works. Is this a new one? Hello, people. Turns out I can't live chat and stream and talk at the same time. Anyway, you can see there's a little bit of a delay, but I'll have to sort that out for next time. Just before I get into the details that I want to talk about with the Hydra guitar, for those of you that don't know, I am building this year a guitar for the Great Guitar Build-Off, in which I'm incorporating an iPad into the body of the guitar, which I think at the moment will be both a visualizer of the sounds that you're playing and also anything else you want to play in the background, videos of any form as well, and potentially could be used as an interface using something like an iRig. And later this month, in fact next week, next Wednesday, on the 27th of April, I'll be doing a day of live streams like this from my workshop, in which I will be building a prototype of this guitar to try things out. So the prototype, the idea of the prototype is it will allow me to see how the iPad will fit into the guitar body and all the different things I can do to make sure the iPad screen is as visible as possible, because obviously I can't drill holes in it, put pickups in. Anyway, enough about that. You can see those live streams lined up if you subscribe and like my channel, and also if you hit that bell you get notification when they come. But let's get on with what I wanted to talk about today. It was some of the things Steve Vai has said about his Hydra guitar. So what I'm going to do is quickly just share a screen into the comments of last week's video. Now, oh, it looks like there's something going wrong with my stream here, but never mind, I can sort that out at another point. Yeah, in the text, in the comments, I had a comment from someone called Mikey. Mikey turns out to be Steve Vai's art director and creative director for the Hydra reveal video. Now that video is the one that I focused on in our last video, focusing on different bits of the guitar. I've got a different video to show you this week to focus on bits of it. But he confirmed two things. He said that the sustainer in the Hydra is actually a Fernandez FSK 401 sustainer. Now we were speculating about that because we knew that Steve Vai had stopped using Fernandez in the production models of his custom guitars, of his signature guitars, because they're harder to get hold of and they're less consistent than the other model that he switched to. But turns out he clearly does like the Fernandez, and that's what's been used in this one by the team Ibanez that built it. The other thing he confirmed was the MIDI in it is a 6-string MIDI pickup. Now that's exactly what I'm using for the guitar I'm designing for my client Philip, who wants a 7-string guitar, like Steve Vai's one of his necks here is 7-string, but with the MIDI pickup, and it's really hard to get a MIDI pickup for a 7-string guitar. There are a few people that custom build them, but for the one we wanted, which is the same model that Steve Vai is using, they just don't make a 7-string. Great, so that was fantastic of Mikey to say. Now also I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video to 2 other videos of interviews with Steve Vai that I've watched that were interesting. One of them is with a Japanese web page and called. One thing about the interview that he did there is it didn't reveal a lot more than what we'd already said, but it was just interesting to hear him talk about it at a stage when he sounded like he'd just finished recording the music for Teeth of the Hydra but hadn't recorded the music video yet. He was talking about the way he played the guitar sitting down and some of the issues that he might have had playing it. We're not really going to talk too much about the performing of the Teeth of the Hydra, but I'm also going to link a video below to another Music is Win video. I mentioned them last week. Tyler from Music is Win interviewed Steve Vai about the performing of Teeth of the Hydra. Now, that interview went up just a couple of days ago, so after my video last week, and some of the things that Steve Vai said in that video with Tyler from Music is Win were things that he'd already written in my comments. Now, I'm not saying I got the scoop there, but he did put it up there first, so who knows. Anyway, one of the things that's really good about that Music is Win video is he breaks down the performance of Teeth of Hydra. Now, in the performance, he talks about how he's playing certain things and how the neck got in the way, or how he had to compose around using the necks and using all the buttons. So it's worth listening to that, but we're going into the actual build of the guitar and the parts that we were speculating on last time, which he's given more information of now. One thing he did mention in the Japanese interview though was this. This, some of you might recognise, is Doof, the Doof warrior from Mad Max Fury Road. Now, in Mad Max Fury Road, he rides atop of a massive vehicle playing his guitar. There's a flamethrower coming out of it. Steve Vai said when he first saw that is what triggered the idea to build the Hydra, and he came up with this idea of the three-headed guitar, and he wanted the heart bits in it right from the beginning. Contacted the team at Ibanez, and that was about 5 years ago. It took them 3.5 years to build it. Incredible process, but I like the idea it was triggered by that. I just mentioned Philip that I'm doing that MIDI guitar for him. He originally approached me to make a copy of this, the Doof guitar, but now it's evolved into more of an apocalyptic, insane relic guitar with lots of other bits on it. Great. Let me just check one thing. Oh, it doesn't look like we've got anyone in live chat today. Maybe Thursday isn't the best day to do it. But for those of you that are watching in the future, if you do have any more questions, please join in. Poo Ninja's just arrived. Hi, Poo Ninja. He's mentioning the bagpipe video that Bagpipe Vader that Steve posted. I'm going to have to check that out afterwards. Poo Ninja, I was just about to go into what Steve Vai said about the guitar. Now, I won't just leave this text on the screen. I'm going to flip backwards and forwards through videos. But it starts with, "Hey Devil and Sons, thanks so much for taking time and having the interest in making this video. I feel fans of the Hydra will find it very informative." Well, I hope so, and I hope the input that I had from people like Poo Ninja last week really added to that as well. It's quite fun doing things like this live, and I'm going to try and do it more. So what he said is, some things have changed a bit once I actually started recording with the Hydra, and he didn't want to give away too much. So the Hydra has triggers in different locations, and you can see the function of the Dragonizer as the track kicks in. Now, let's switch to this a second. As the track kicks in, it ends up with switching on this, which he calls the brain. Now, if we just skip back a little bit, it's not a great picture of it, but the brain is a unit that takes the... Hi, Bam Mozzie. Great you're here. Oh no, you're having problems with my audio. An electric sex machine. Ooh. Let me see if I can do something about that. Hopefully that might help a little bit with my audio. We'll see what happens. Again, it's all quite new to me doing this audio, this live streaming. If I just go back to the start of the Teeth of the Hydra, when it kicks in, I've got the sound switched off for the moment, just for copyright reasons. But you can see when he starts the video, he hits that Dragonizer button and it switches on the brain. And we're going to talk about the brain because he mentions that in his comment that he left last week. He also mentioned something in the two interviews that I spoke about at the beginning of this video, which I'll put the link to in the comments, and in that he mentions the idea that there it goes. Do you see when he put the Dragonizer on? When he hits the Dragonizer button, here it is. The brain switch is on. So I think the Dragonizer is simply the on-off switch for the brain. And as we can see here, the brain has 4 meters on it. He said in the comments that he left for me, they are the inputs for the 4 different leads, 4 different instruments that are going into the guitar. They're the meters which then output from the brain. So we'll talk about that in one moment, but you can see that there's just an Ethernet going into this box at the moment, into the brain at the moment. He said in his interview with Tyler on Music is Win that for filming the video he didn't actually have it all set up leading out, but these signals go out one from each instrument. There's the harp, there's the 12 string, the 7 string and the bass. And what he said in the comments he left for me is that the Ethernet cable, which is a Cat6 cable, has the 7 string, 12 string bass, harp, MIDI and the power from the Hydra all going into the brain, where the brain separates the various elements and sends the next to different amps. So all 4 mono outputs from this go into his Fractal FX, which has 4 inputs and which then turns them into 4 stereo outputs. I'm just seeing yeah, I've just seen Bam Mozzie's mentioned that video with Tyler on Music is When. It is great, I really like it. And yes, he also said this brain is heavier than the guitar, and the guitar must be really heavy. He didn't actually have a weight for it yet. So those 4 mono outputs go into his Fractal, where he can control them, send them out as stereo outputs, but the 7 string also goes into his main amp rig, whereas the other necks are all processed by the Fractal. And then go direct into inputs at the front of house monitors. Now, he hasn't played it live yet, so maybe that might change a bit when he's playing it live, but this is how he recorded it. And in that Music is Win video, he did mention that it is quite hard to balance out how all the instruments sound in the mix, because they're all coming from the same instrument at the same time. So what the Fractal allows him to do is put the effects on, pan things left and right for his mix. It sounds really interesting. Yeah, and also the MIDI comes into this, is controlled by the brain. So one thing he said in the comment that he left on my video was that there's lots of hidden buttons that trigger samples and MIDI elements of it. I think that's still what the Seducer and the Climax are. He said, as far as the Seducer and Climax regulator are concerned, well, I'll say this, if you touch the Seducer, you need a Climax regulator. See the video performance of that spot. So that spot's about 2 minutes 30 in. And actually for this one I will share the sound. Hopefully my sound's working out alright. Oh yeah, Bam Mozzie's pointed out about the harp being overdubbed through the DI on the recording. Now, I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a reason that is the case. Let's just put the sound on for this bit. We'll just play a few seconds. Hopefully this will come through fine for you. So there you saw at the end, he sort of winks at the camera. So he said, as far as the Seducer and Climax regulator are concerned, if you touch the Seducer, you need a Climax regulator. See the video for that spot. Directly after it's engaged, he gives a hint, honk and a wink, so you get the joke. Well, let's just quickly look at that again. I think something else is happening there. So just before he hits the Seducer, which is this red button here, and you see the Climax regulator, which is just hidden by his arms here, the 3 green tubes, he switches a dial. Now, on the description on the original video that they put up to reveal the Hydra, that dial was the dial that controls the sustainer, the level of the sustainer. But to me it sounds like it's doing some sort of pitch shifting when he does it. So here comes the pitch shifting. And then when he hits the Climax, the Seducer, it sounds like it triggers a bit of MIDI, which sounds like, to me, a light voice of a woman moaning or making some sort of sexual noise, then the green lights come on and it cuts out. So I'm not really sure. Let's play that one more time. I'm sure that button is changing the it isn't just the sustainer, it seems to be changing the pitch. Oh, I don't know what that sound is, but there's some sort of that happens when he presses it. Great. Yeah, Lucifer, I can't say your name. Luthia Builds is here. Fantastic for joining me. I highly recommend you go and check his channel out for his great guitar build-off build. It is incredible. Anyway, let me just go back to a different video here. This is, I'm going to just leave this playing in the background while I talk a bit over it. This is another video of the guitar, but with the Teeth of the Hydra music playing in the background. So it's much longer than the original video that we looked at last week. I'm not going to leave the sound off again, as I said, for copyright reasons. One thing I was about to mention before when I got distracted by the chat, I'm sorry, I'm still new to reading people's live chats, was that he carries the guitar when he plays it in the video, and presumably when he's going to play it live, by having a special strap, like a harness that goes round him that clips to the back of the guitar. So that's why you don't see any strap on it. It's really clever. He did say in the comment he left for me, yeah, he might have said actually it triggers a vocal sample, Ban Mozzie. That's seducer button. That's what we see happen, and the climax regulator cuts it off, and then he gives his little wink. One thing he did say in the comment for me is that unfortunately, because he's just had another shoulder surgery and he's healing, he can't play this guitar. He said it's hard enough to play the regular guitar. Can't even get my arm over the Hydra right now, more or less wield it. But I'm confident it can make an appearance on the USA leg. Now I know that Poonin just said he's going to go to that, so hopefully you'll see it there. Oh! Borgian Evolution's here as well. Fantastic. Now, in case you missed the beginning, I'm putting the live stream up on the actual page because it doesn't seem to play back afterwards. This is my third time using this interface, and I can already see there's some weird thing happening with the text that's streaming along the top. So sorry about that. Yeah, let's just look at this video while I talk over it. I love the fact that it's got this incense strap to help him hold it. Hopefully he will be well enough to play it again. In that video with Tyler, he talked about this idea of doing some more recording with it as well, which is brilliant. The video I'm going to link to again in my description with the Japanese interview, in that he talks about this idea that when he came up with wanting to build the guitar, he knew he wanted to make music around it from the beginning, so it's totally functional. Oh yeah, there's loads of great guitar build-off related people here. Brilliant. Right, so look, here we can just about see another thing that my mate Steve, mentioned in the comments, which is there is a whammy bar connected to the 7-string bridge, but gets in the way for playing this particular song. I'm going to try and look when we go around for these other buttons that he said are hidden buttons that trigger different MIDI and different samples as it goes through. I love the fact there's some little carved bits in it. In last week's video I showed you the different headstocks, different headstock options, and here we've got one of those ones which has got the little cogs tied in. Very steampunk. Like I said, you can buy them on eBay, you can buy them on Amazon, just bags of little cogs that people use to make their steampunk outfits with, and that I've used on my steampunk guitars before. So look, this switch, I am absolutely positive when he hit it, it was just the on-off button for the brain. It's only got 2 wires coming out of it. Of course, it might be that each of these has more than one core to it, but I think it is just an on-off switch. I see Ban Mozzie said it's too heavy to transport the guitar, so not viable to transport globally. He did say also because of his surgery, in the message for me anyway, the surgery means he can't play in Europe. But yes, he said it's hard to transport. He jokes in that Japanese video that the case for the Hydra, which we saw last week in the video, was actually the size of a small car. So yeah, it is hard to transport. He also talks about the insurance elements of transporting it. Now, personally, when I send my guitars that I build to people, I no longer insure each guitar with the courier at a time. I pay a yearly fee for an insurance policy that covers sending my guitars worldwide, and it's expensive. And that's just for my guitars. My guitars are nowhere near as expensive as this is. And not only is this expensive, it belongs to Steve Vai, so it's going to even have a more ridiculous cost to it and more ridiculous cost of insurance. So I'm just reading the chat again. Look like there might have been a problem with the stream. Again, apologies, I'm still new to this, trying to get it right. What I love about this is it does look slightly damaged. There's scratches on it, there's dents on it. Some of the metallic work looks a little bit rusty. You can see where things have actually been welded and they've left the kind of weld marks on it. I think this looks great. It makes it look like that steampunk aesthetic of looking worn, but at the same time it doesn't look too grimy and over the top. So here's one of the other heads, again with those cogs. I love the way they've put the cogs around the actual machine heads here. Now I speculated last week, I wondered how much of this was made, like cast especially for it, and how much of it is things that they've just found. And one thing I like here is this just looks like a general hinge that they found. And one thing they've done to make it look weirder is instead of just screwing the hinge in, they've used odd type screws. There's a channel I follow called The Smuggler's Room on YouTube, and he builds basically Star Wars related props. And one thing he always goes on about is don't just use standard screws. If you use screws that are less common, hex screws for example, then it starts to look stranger and otherworldly to people because people aren't as used to seeing those types of screw heads. And I think that's definitely the case here. You can see it around the top, these are definitely hex screws that have been put in. And like I said before, there's some bits like this sort of fuse that have just been put on which aren't functional but just there for the look of it. Now look, here's the harp. In his interview with Tyler, Steve Vai does say how hard it was to keep the harp in tune because, like I explained in my last video, it's a sympathetic harp, which means it resonates when other strings are played. It does start to muddy up the sound that's coming out because it's resonating when he's playing all of the other strings on the different instruments. So what he said was that he had to overdub for the Teeth of the Hydra, overdub the harp strings because there was no way to get a perfectly clean sound from it. In that Japanese interview, he talks about when you normally record a song, you record the bass first or the drums and then you layer things up. Whatever you do, you record in different stages and layer up. But for this, he wanted it to be something that he can play in one go. So things aren't layered up so much. Maybe notes are hanging on from one instrument while he's playing another, but it's rare that two are being played at the same time. But as you see in the video, he does use both hands to play different necks at the same time. It's incredible. Yeah, I totally agree about this being potentially a piece of art for the wall. I find that's what I say about my guitars when I sell them. So I make them to be playable, and when I work with clients I design them to be playable, but I know that some people buy my guitars just to hang up. One of the first Alien guitars I sold, the person that bought it said he didn't want to play it, he just wanted to display it. Yeah, there are bits on here, like we said, the fan on the bass part last week are just there for the aesthetic reasons, but I think they look so brilliant. They've done a really great job of balancing out that look of the steampunk elements, the slightly used look to it, but also the fact that it doesn't look too oily and gritty, which I think is something some people get with their steampunk designs. The pipework that's been put on is all there aesthetically to look great, but it also looks like it's slightly functional, which sometimes I think on people's steampunk guitars, when they build them, they just put these things on and they just look a bit random, like cogs that just look a bit random but don't seem to have a connection. I love how we've got these crimp wires and the connectors and the wires going along the top. I've just done something very similar on my rebranded Ghostbusters Protoncaster guitar. I think I will be having videos of that coming out soon, but the Great Guitar Build-Off's taking over a bit, so I need to edit those videos down and for sale. But I did exactly the same idea as this because I got that idea off of people that build proton packs for cosplay. So I wonder how much the people that built this guitar also looked at cosplayers. Yeah, I mentioned the wiring last week, Bulgonian Evolution. Mentioned it last week. It's incredible, it's insane, but it does sound like from the very beginning Steve Vai had in mind that this was all going to be functional and usable, and he said he got the guitar 3.5 years after the original concept happened, but then that was 1.5 years ago, and it took a long time to come up with how to embed all of those elements together in a piece of music. He said to Tyler in the interview with Tyler that to come up with a new song, or even I guess to start writing a new song, it's not something you can just sit down and fiddle with a little bit. He said he needs like a 15-hour focused day to really think about how things can interact to start that process off. It's the pickup seem more weathered and worn than the rest of it, but I don't mind that too much. Here we can see a bit of the metal with the weathering on it. So that seducer definitely triggered that voice we heard, and when it triggered, then the climax regulator went on. I'm still sure the climax regulator are functional. I mentioned last week how I thought they worked, but it's hard to tell when it's just used in one song for a brief moment. I appreciate he wanted to use every bit in the song, and he didn't want it to just be gimmicky, so you can't just be over the top with everything. You've got to have each piece in its place. Maybe if he does write more songs with it, we'll start to discover more about it. I don't know what these red circles are, but there's a load of them around the back by the harp as well, and I think they look really cool. Again, it's that idea of when you customize something and you're adding things to it for that visual element. If you're using something that people don't recognize, it adds a whole new layer to the guitar. It makes it look more unknown and mysterious. I don't know if any of you have seen the space guitars that I've been building for 1.5 years now, or maybe a bit more than that. I keep not finishing them because clients' jobs come in the way, but there's some elements that look like this on it, but that I've made by using plastic water pistols and repurposing them and chopping them up and casting into them. But this really reminds me of that. Again, I hope to get them finished soon. I've got too much work from clients coming in at the moment, which is brilliant. And some great news is, apart from some contracts I have committed to for this summer and for next school academic year, all the teaching work I do now, so I teach about art. So I lecture art at universities in the summer. In the term time, I train teachers to be more creative in classrooms. Well, I've given up all of that basically. I've got a couple of contracts committed to, but from next month I'll be more or less full-time guitar making, which is very exciting. So hopefully I'll be able to catch up on all of those other ones. Lucifer, I'm still not going to be able to say it. Builds asked how many luthiers built this guitar. Now, in my video last week I mentioned some names. I'm afraid I haven't got them handy at the moment, but there's one main luthier that built the guitar, and there was one main person that was in charge of all the electronics. Although I would imagine from the way it was described by Steve Vai talking about it, there were a team of people that worked together to build it, and it's not clear how many, but there was one main brain to the design of the physical instrument and one to all the wiring inside, and I'm sure they would spring off of each other. One of them saying we want it to look like this and function like this, the other one wiring up and then suggesting other possibilities, or because of the wiring affecting the layout somehow. Yeah, I'll link last week's video in the description for this, and it's got a little bit about the factory and the process in it there. I love these lights. A lot of the wiring seems to be controlling the lights as well. As we saw, some of them change colour or pulse a bit. I don't know if any of you have got a favourite element about the look of it. and the way it's built, not just the way it's played. I quite like the way the bit at the back, which I feel it's a bit like metallic feathers or a wing, ties in with this circle at the front, a bit like it is an animal. And this is the back, almost like the peacock feathers. These are the heads of the Hydra, or obviously 2 heads and 1 headless. But this just has that traditional round guitar element to it. Yeah, thank you. It is cool to be going full time. Electric Sex Machine. I'm not sure what you mean by Brett. Have I missed a comment out from earlier? All I know is that it was built by one main luthier who was in charge of it, and one electronic wizard he was described as. He's the one we see in the photos I had last week doing all the wiring. Hopefully this video will make more sense to people who will be able to read the comments, but I'm not sure if I've made the comment box too small. So if you are watching this in the future and you are trying to read the comments people put up, do let me know. Yeah, it does look like a frilled dragon neck. Oh, the lamb's here. Hey, hi the lamb. Just as I was coming to an end. Good to see you. I think the Lamb, Bam Mozzie, Poo Ninja are regulars in all the live streams I watch by other people as well. Great, so look, that was a half-hour stream. I think I'm going to be doing live streams every week. I know I will be doing ones about the guitar build-off in the forthcoming few weeks or month. I'm recommending some of the videos I like of other people building and things to watch out for, as well as next Wednesday that full day of live streams of my own build. But I wonder if any of you've got any suggestions of guitars and things you wouldn't mind seeing me talk about. Oh, yep, okay, I'm there. I'm following your chat now, Electric Sex Machine. I've got to get used to reading the chats and talking at the same time, and reading my notes here. Right, if that's alright with everyone, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me. I think I've just worked out why my sound's funny, because I thought I had my OneDrive off in the background, and when that's on it just buggers everything up, and it seems to be on. But hopefully that all made sense. So I'm going to say goodbye. Until next time, happy strumming. And thanks for joining me.